3, 4.
We just live right now, man. It's going down. Excited for the season. You know, we coming off a playoff win. I mean, you know, we had a couple wins.
Hello, and welcome to Diaries, a Milwaukee Bucks podcast presented by us, the staff of Brew Hoop, presented by me, Riley Feldman, one of your usual co-hosts, and this is a special guest I have on this week. Last interview, I said that Jackson Gross is the hardest working man at Brew Hoop. This is truly the hardest working man at Brew Hoop. You'll see him at pretty much every home game. He will be in the media box, kicking it up with the beautiful people. He is the one who, I don't know, fathered is kind of a strong term, but the generator of the name Dear Diaries comes from this man in particular. It's Brew Hoop's Gabe Stoltz. Gabe, how are you doing?
Hey, Riley. Doing great over here. Happy to be on.
We're happy to have you. I'm looking forward to this because you have a unique perspective on the team that really only comes to beat writers. And I know you don't go with the team on the road, but with how often you are with the players, how often you talk to the coaches, things like that. I don't know, in the past, I used to kind of discount that a little bit just because you kind of get used to all the press conferences, especially when you're watching on like FS Wisconsin, now Bally Sports. But when you're in person and you get to see the body language, you get to understand where these guys are coming from. I think it offers a lot more depth and perspective. I always go back to the one Orlando Magic game I covered because I was like, oh, this is why people do this role. So I'm really excited to have you on to run through our interrogation. We're continuing our season preview series of interviews. Gabe is the latest victim who signed up to come into the podcast studio for this. I'm going to be asking Gabe our standard set of questions to help set the table for the 2024-2025 Milwaukee Bucks season before we get to his contribution to the miscellaneous section, which I'm going to keep under wraps until the very end. But I think those who are audiophiles will enjoy if you listen until the end. So without further ado, we're going to get going right away. I'm going to start here, Gabe, like I do with every guest. Going into this regular season, which new Buck are you most intrigued by?
Yeah, there's a lot of possible answers to this one, which is, maybe even a little bit surprising given the roster constrictions that the Bucks and John Horst faced at the conclusion of last year. Definitely a lot of splashes in free agency, though. For this question, I think I'm going to answer maybe a little bit of a curveball, but and go AJ Johnson, just because, draft night, everyone was set, like draft board was coming together, and there are a lot of different routes that the Bucks could go. Some players had slipped, and it's the excitement of having your team on the clock, like, the anticipation. And then it always seems that whenever fans are the most anticipating it the most and eager, something totally out of the field happens and they go a totally different route. And I was at the media draft coverage when covering that night when he was selected, and I just remember, like, he was drafted it came out leaked. Steve McGargy, I think, was the one maybe of the Associated Press who, like, maybe it was somebody else, but like someone found it on their phone. So it was like, and everyone was just like, who? Like, it was just like, what the heck are they doing? And it's just like, man. So no one was really expecting it. So, and then of course, just the raw talent that he has and just the unknown and the uncertainty, but just through Summer League and the videos that have been surfacing of him at camps with seasoned players in the league. Of course, he's friends with Jalen Green of the Rockets. And he's just exhibiting pure athleticism in a lot of those trending videos. We saw some action from him in Summer League. And it just is something that I don't think we've, maybe since Jabari Parker, but like, that we've been accustomed to seeing from rookies, and just like the sheer like athleticism. And you can almost see him, like he was with Damian Lillard. So we know that those two have been connecting I'm sure that Giannis has been in touch with him, and along with Chris and the whole team. So I think it's a bit of a wild card almost. I think I'm most intrigued by him. So it's going to be exciting to see how he just continues to develop.
What would you say in your minds, knowing the fact that he's a rookie, knowing the guys who are in front of him, knowing the fact that this is a contending team that's not going to have a lot of space for younger guys, unless, of course, injuries pile up? What is a successful rookie season for AJ Johnson?
Yeah, I think that's the big question to it. Like, you can be excited and intrigued, but we all know how Doc Rivers tends to go towards rookies. I think just I don't want to say that he has to get a lot of obviously rotation minutes or even just have a true impact to be successful. I think just showing progress in his skill set, continuing to see if that athleticism can translate to the pro level, I think will be even if there's just flashes, I think that could be deemed almost like a success, because he's not going to be getting impactful minutes in the playoffs. I mean, if he does, boy, the Bucks are pretty good. And John Horst is going to be in the contention for exec of the year. But
yes,
I don't think it's fair to say if he doesn't make those meaningful minutes that his season will be a failure, because I think everyone knows that that's not a realistic expectation. So I'd say just if he almost just holds his own, and just you can see from the beginning of the year to the end, there's improvements on both ends of the ball. And the good thing about Doc is that he's the most transparent coach the Bucks have ever had in recent memory. So he is. Even if he's not going to be tracking the rotation frequently or getting a lot of minutes on a consistent basis, Doc will still shine a light on how he's progressing. So I think that's going to be fun to follow, because Doc I was talking with Justin Garcia about it when I was on Locked On Bucks a few months ago. It's just the level of transparency Doc has, and the tangents he goes on is, especially compared to Bud. And then we all know and his responses, but I think the media will be able to get a lot out of Doc on just the development of Johnson through the year, even if he's not receiving the minutes that Bucks fans might be expecting from him.
The way I always look at rookie years is not so much what's going to be the impact in this season on winning, playoffs, anything like that. It's just more so, let's flesh out all the skill sets that you have.
Yep.
Like when Marjan Beauchamp came in his rookie season, it's Summer League looks like he can defend, and then we go into the regular season. Okay, looks like he has a serviceable 3-point shot. Just show me different skills that you have. Same thing with Andre Jackson Jr. He goes in, he doesn't really have a 3-point shot. It's still sort of iffy on volume, but he makes a couple of them, enough to give you hope about it. And so the same thing with AJ Johnson. Let's see what those shooting splits look like as a rookie. If he got that, okay, then you can keep me invested into the next season. So definitely. I agree. Yeah.
It'll be fun to watch for sure.
Yeah, I think so. He'll be electric, especially if he's first half of the season, couple of minutes with a couple of the vets. I think it'll be really exciting. So I'm looking forward to it. But that's a developmental arc for him. I think even the most optimistic AJ Johnson believer has to agree to that.
Absolutely.
Let's stay with the Young Bucks, though, because there are a couple of guys that I think are either in or on the fringe of the rotation who could crack through. I want to ask you which Young Buck you think, and in this case, we're saying guys with 3 years or less experience, will have the greatest impact on the season. This encompasses regular season and playoffs, however you want to answer. And your group is primarily AJ Johnson, AJ Green, Andre Jackson Jr., Tyler Smith, Chris Livingston, and Marjan Beauchamp.
I'm going to go with AJ Green for this one. He's definitely seen the most action out of the group that you mentioned. It was unique when Doc first came to Milwaukee and had his initial presser. One of the questions that I asked him was, I just highlighted the team obviously has so many veterans and such a strong leadership at the top of the roster, but there's some youth at the bottom of it. And I mentioned Marjan, and I mentioned Ajax, and I was just like, what can you see? How can you see those two contributing in the year? And then he just mentioned in his response, he was just like, well, down the road in the playoffs, we're going to get contributions from one of those guys. I don't know who. Turns out the answer was AJ Green.
Mm-hmm.
But I think just with how the trust that he's seen in Doc right off the bat is just clearly evident of how much he's going to be relied on this year. Even in the playoffs, he got really hefty minutes, and just we all know he can shoot. I think the big thing is just how can he continue to improve in his third year on the defensive side of the ball. Doc mentions just how he always trusts him, and when Doc Rivers is doing that, you are doing something right. I know Doc gets his criticism and whatnot from the NBA community and whatnot, but the man's been around the league for a long time, and he knows when a player can contribute at the highest level. So I would answer AJ Green. I think it's going to be – he'll definitely have his fingerprints on the box scores one way or the other. Probably won't be extremely drastic. I'm not expecting like a huge step forward, but I think I don't think he's going to falter. I think there will be continued improvement this year.
And the way that I think people automatically think of this question, completely understandably, because we're at the preseason, but we're thinking so far forward into the playoffs, is like, oh, who's going to be the guy who makes the playoff rotation? And I think there is definitely a shot for AJ Green to be that, but I think he's reached the point now where, let's say, Pat Connaughton still kind of struggles, a little iffy, or like guys just need a night off because it's an older team. Like when you put AJ Green out there, he's one of the young guys you say, okay, I think we're going to get enough positive contributions out of him that even when he's like filling in for somebody else in the rotation, he's not taking things off the floor. Like he's not, taking things off the table. So in terms of just like winning regular season games, it feels like last year's progression, and hopefully if it continues in the steady line into this year, it's like he'll have an impact because he will provide winning moments in the regular season, or at least contributions to set the table for winning. So even from that perspective, like that's worthwhile, even if he does only have, still some of a spot role in the playoff rotation. So,
I agree. Yeah. And the answer could honestly be Andre Jackson Jr. too. It's just a matter of, I think I was thinking about this and I'm like, I was pretty set on Green, but I was just mainly because of just, Ajax just runs around the floor like just
like a bat out of hell.
Yeah, crazy manner, but which is great. You love to see it, but it's just like tone it down a little. He just has to find that consistency of being able to be aggressive on defense without being too aggressive, and it's tough for rookies to figure that out. And maybe also just from the fact of like you probably couldn't have had as much of a, I wouldn't say disaster of a first year for a player, but just like in terms of just change in coaching and just, that's got to be extremely difficult for a rookie. So optimistic for Andre this season to see if he could take that next step forward from all angles of the floor.
Like put yourself in Andre Jackson Jr.'s shoes. Okay, so you get drafted the Bucks. You're like, okay, the title contender, but like I know what it means to be a competitor at the highest level and like for at the NCAA level. All right, Drew Holiday, I respect that guy. Giannis, okay, and then all of a sudden it's like, okay, now Damian Lillard's my point guard. Okay, cool. It's like Adrian Griffin's my coach. Now Adrian Griffin is no longer my coach. And now it's Joe Prunty. Now it's not Joe Prunty. Now it's Doc Rivers is my coach. Like the number of different things, for the fact that they were able to make like as much work as they did in spite of everything is, I think maybe there's some undue credit there as well for the fact that they were able to get something out of it all.
Especially as you're a rookie too, like you don't have past seasons in the NBA that a coach can look back on and review tape. He only can go off college and what he sees in practice. So that was 3 times in the season where he's trying to make a favorable first impression and work with the coaches. And then you have not just head coach changes, but just from the assistant coaches too changing. I mean, I remember the Bucks having I don't know if anybody actually did research this, but if they didn't, they had to have had one of the largest coaching benches in league history. I don't know what the final tally ended up being, but man, that bench was just crazy looking.
They could have fielded a whole second rotation of players if they wanted, with coach players if they were so inclined.
They honestly could have. Those closed door practices had to have been pretty entertaining.
Well, I think you're right on the money that AJ Green and Ajax are definitely the most qualified for having an impact on the season. I think Marjan will get a chance at the start of the season. I don't want to write him off. I think he will get a shot. The rookies and Chris Livingston. Chris Livingston could be a dark horse too. So I think it's an interesting question because you could kind of have a lot of different answers for it, but I feel like AJ Green's a pretty solid one. Okay. Let's move on from the young guys. We're going to go a little bit older, not too old because Gary Trent Jr. is not that old, but I want you to rank the new free agent signings on how well they will fill the role they'll be given. So the three guys, for listeners and yourself, Gary Trent Jr., DeLon Wright, Taurean Prince, and I'm kind of leaving it up to you because I think we all have a sense of the role they will have, but kind of what you, based off of your expectations for them, who you think will fit in best and who will kind of struggle the most to bring whatever they've been brought in for.
Yeah. So I think it's like I referenced earlier, with how the Bucks were constrained, the various options that they could go with for offseason maneuvers. John Horst did a terrific job. So, and we all know how bad the bench was in the last year's playoffs. So I think it's just a huge step forward, all in all. So I'll start off by that, with mentioning that. But I'll start from the, I guess, third.
It's not worse, just guy who I'm trying to find a way to like couch it in a way it's like it's not really criticizing him, but just like based on
I'll preface that I'm not gonna they're not I agree with you. In no way criticisms and whatnot, but just a general assumption or characterization. So I think DeLon Wright, just starting off, bring some 3-point shooting, of course. I believe it was 35% shooting last year from deep. So that's been great. They'll be a welcomed addition to the team, and just which is sort of the theme with Taurean Prince, just aggressive on defense, of just being able to get those steals. I think he averages a takeover steal per game in his career, and just not just that, but just his ability to impact the game by getting his fingertips on the ball, even if he's not getting a full steal. So those deflections are just so key, especially if you have a guy like Giannis on the floor who could just reach over and grab it too at the Bucks' length, and just disrupting the offense will be big. Then Taurean Prince, I think it's just definitely one of the more underrated signings, I would say. I think just from him being able to shoot the ball and the intensity he could bring on defense is going to be welcomed, especially if there's injuries that the Bucks face this season. He'll be able to hopefully step up. And then the fact that he played under Darvin Ham in Los Angeles is going to be something I think that trends well for the Bucks. And he has that familiarity with the coaching staff already. So I think that will go a long way with him. The first thing I thought of when the Bucks signed him is, I don't know if you've ever seen this video, Riley, but when he was in college at Baylor, I think Baylor was like a 3 seed in the NCAA tournament, and they were playing Yale, and Yale knocked them off. And Prince, in his post-game presser, like this reporter just is like, lists off the rebounding stats, and Yale just like, I don't know if they dominated them, but they outboarded it.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And the reporter ended this question: how does Yale out-rebound Baylor?
Mm-hmm.
And Prince obviously was just pissed off from the game, and he goes, well, ball comes off the rim. You jump up, get the ball.
I've seen that, yeah. Yeah.
We'll see if he has any of those moments this year. Hopefully, it's not
Yeah.
a Brew Hoop representative. But I think he'll be able to contribute to the team in impactful ways, especially come postseason time. And then Gary Trent Jr. He's obviously on a lot of Bucks fans' wish lists. Sort of a shot in the dark just with what the Bucks could offer, but he ended up doing it and signing with Milwaukee. I think obviously Dame, you all know he had a big impact on his decision just with the twos, their familiarity with one another. And he just adds juice to the team in a way that's going to be really appreciated and complimentary of the other starters that Milwaukee has, And looking at the past shooters that the Bucks have had in that role, you look at Grayson Allen, you look at Malik Beasley. I don't think Gary Trent, at least hopefully, will be caught in a, frozen and have concrete blocks around his feet like Beasley did in that game against Tyrese Halliburton and the Pacers last year.
Mm-hmm.
And he also, I think, just he could shoot the ball, but he can just. That's not his only way to score. So I think he can work inside. That separates him from past players in that position that Milwaukee's had. So just being able to score the ball in a versatile manner is going to be something that the Bucks will appreciate. It won't just be something, he can only shoot from the outside and players, match up on him, seal him up out there. I think he'll be able to work his way inside a little bit and maneuver accordingly, set up his teammates, and just be a welcome team. I also like to think that the fact that Dame played with him for so long and just in terms of like whatever off-season communication the players have with one another, like I just try to think of like what that might look like if Dame's like trying to actively recruit him and then Dame's talking on the side to Giannis about like what he can bring. And then everyone's just getting on the same page. Yes, that's the type of guy we want on the Bucks. We all know that like Giannis is big on that and just having good teammates. And that was something that was really evident last year. It's like you see it on the court, obviously, but like just in the locker room and just the gel. And when the cameras are off, just the gel between everyone. Like I remember just between Dame and Giannis, talking, and then. Like I remember just like it was a rough patch in the year and Brooke was sitting down with Andre Jackson at the locker for like 30 plus minutes, just walking through things. Giannis was helping out too. So like everybody's just, really close at the hip. And I think that just the fact that those two played with one another bodes well. The fact that, and then in terms of just communication with other people of like what the type of player, the type of person and personality that Trent is, through Dame's experience, I'm sure has relayed through to other members of the team and got their seal of approval and like, hey, we want this. We know Dame trusts him. Trust is a big word that Giannis uses a lot. So I think that fact that Dame was such a big advocate for him will be big.
I think Gary Trent will have the hottest, the quickest start, the quickest fitting into the group because of, like you said, he has the past experience. His role, it's not easy, but it's the most straightforward amongst the guys because like you're the pressure release valve and there is pressure on you to deliver, but it's straightforward what he's going to be asked to do. My quick follow-up, and this is kind of like a more existential question. Is there a harder job on this roster? Clearly there are, but if you're going to be like one of the role guys, is there a harder job than being the lead backup guard? Because there's a lot of expectations that you have to be able to change the pace, bring defense, have to be able to fit in with whatever like variation of starters are out there. Yeah. But you're also like there to take the ball up the court. So like you kind of have to initiate. It's just, that seems like an extremely tough role to fulfill.
Job, yeah, for sure. Yeah. It's just like, it all starts with the point guard too. Just like the intensity, looking at it like TJ McConnell on Indiana, like just what he could bring, like especially in the playoffs, like just being able to, everyone's tired and then he comes in and you're like, you feel that fear as a opposing fan of just like seeing what he can bring and what his capabilities are. So yeah, I agree with you. Just like being able to gel with everyone in the lineup, and then knowing that you're one of the the biggest things that the fans are looking forward to has to add some pressure too. So just from a mental side, I'm sure that that angle has a little bit of a toll too. But yeah, I think you make a fair point with that assessment.
It's the reason why George Hill, it's why he kept ending up back here, because he was like an ideal fit in the role that he was asked, which is essentially this role. Like, you have to be able to defend. Like, if the lead point guard's having an off night for whatever reason, you have to be able to like step up in an emergency fix to do that. It's a lot to heap on a guy. And I think DeLon, because he has so much experience, and even like recent, whatever, the playoff experience last season with the Heat, I'm pretty confident he'll be able to fit in, but they're huge shoes to fill for anybody. So
you mentioning George Hill, even though he was able to bring intensity at times for the team when he checked in and whatnot, he definitely knew how to kill the intensity during pregame warmups when he would request country songs from DJ Sean.
He had to be himself all the way to the end. I respect that. He said, "Look, I got to get in my own mind space, and if that has to, the rest of the team has to suffer for it a little bit. That's okay. We got to do what we got to do."
Boy. Yeah, you always knew when he was coming out for warm up. So.
It's like a WWE wrestler entrance when the twang starts up on the the banjo. You know who's coming out to the court. Again. Yeah. Well, we wish DeLon luck. I have a feeling he'll do pretty well in the role, but we'll find out once the games start up. Okay, next ranking question. This one's gonna be maybe this is where you can get a little more heat if you'd like. If you want to get controversial with it, I want you to rank these three guys in terms of their importance to this season: Damian Lillard, Chris Middleton, Brook Lopez.
Yeah, another debatable question for sure. I'm going to put Chris at, maybe I'll put him at 3, I guess, like the top, lowest, however you want to distinguish that. But
not like the least important, but based off of your answer, your rationale, like his impact.
The reason I'm putting them there is because, like, you don't really have, I mean, I guess you do technically, but uncertainty maybe is the word I'm trying to describe, just because we all know how last year went, and when the playoffs rolled around, it's just, especially as Giannis was out there, Chris still showed that he can ball, and I think that showed that he still has for this upcoming season, he can be relied on. The big thing with him is just, can he be healthy? As we could say, is the theme with the rest of the team. So I'd put him in that spot. Second, I think I would go with Brook. I think just Brook he's so integral to this team, and I think it's when the Bucks do eventually have to move on from him, it's going to be one of the biggest challenges that Horst has faced in his time in Milwaukee. I think it'll be an extreme period of adjustment, hopefully not too long for the team, but just what he can bring, and just with his age, it's the big question of, can he keep producing at the elite level that he has? More so from his defensive side, just being how seasoned he is. He's had his fair share of injuries, though he's stayed pretty healthy as of late. But just that battle against Father Time, it's coming. He's coming down and knocking on Brook's career soon. But Brook is fighting him off very well. I think just the uncertainty with that, and how much Lopez looms for, like, the importance of him is just supreme for this team. And then number 1, I think, is Dame. I think he'd be the first to tell you that his first year in Milwaukee didn't go as he had hoped. He always knew that he could kick it up at the next year, and I don't think he ever got to the point where he knew he could do it, like the point he knew he was capable of producing. And just from what we've heard in developments and news reports this offseason, is that he's just taking a completely different approach, because you think back to last year, and where he was at right now. He was working with a disgruntled GM out in Portland that wanted to trade him, but because he demanded the trade, he couldn't work out, and his off-season flow was disrupted, and it took him longer to adjust and acclimate, not just from the angle of new teammates and new systems, but just from a conditional standpoint. And then we mentioned earlier with the young guys and Andre Jackson, he still had a lot of turmoil in the regular season of 3 coaches. So I think it was just, I wouldn't say a wasted year, but just like the fact that he feels there's still so much to improve on. And if he does take that next step, that's going to be huge for the Bucks. And I feel, especially with Boston winning the title, a lot of people, I wouldn't say the pressure's off Milwaukee. It's the spotlight is more not on them. I think like maybe it's, you can't say Damian Lillard's been forgotten about, but like, you know, he just might not be, he has the chip on his shoulder of like wanting to show that he's not succumbing to his later years of his career, and he still has a lot left in the tank. And boy, I mean, I think back to his game winner against the Kings, and that was like one of the coolest things I've seen live in all my time covering the Bucks. And I think if he's just able to exhibit more of that on a consistent basis, and just, we didn't even see him and Giannis in the playoffs too. So like, and with big 3 healthy. So I think what he's able to bring to the table, if he's able to dial it back and find his true Portland Dame self again, and really find the groove, I think that's going to take this team to finals contention truly. And that's why I have him as the number 1 in terms of importance this season.
The way I've been thinking about Dame is he is the most important in terms of the team's attitude. Like, of course, he has a competitive attitude, like no question about that. But now that he's had the year under his belt, hopefully a lot more stability in the organization, like what his attitude on a night-to-night basis is going to lead a lot of the way. Obviously, Giannis, it starts with him. But I think having the second guy, because without a doubt, Dame is the second guy, depending on where he is at mentally, obviously production on the court, but like just the attitude, I think is so critical. So I tend to agree there. And then with Brook, like he's super important schematically. Like you said, literally 50% of the court is like built upon the way that he plays. Like that's just how things have been since he showed up. It has worked really well for years and years. Last year, not so much, but just kind of a lot of different things going on last year. And I think something that I definitely discount, but I think doesn't come up as often, is probably more obvious to you guys who are with the team, like I said, in the locker room, is Brook's role as a connector piece in terms of like the locker room amongst the different players. Part of that stems from like his experience, and also because he's the guy who essentially backs up. He's the line of defense for all of his teammates who are on the court with him. He has to call things out. Like if they make a mistake, he has to fix it. And I'm assuming he has like a great attitude in the locker room with the other teammates, etc. So I think schematically, and then also kind of like morale wise, like Brook is really important. So there's definitely, depending on what you think the team most needs or what's most wanting, I think that kind of affects the rankings. But I feel you where you're coming from with Dame. I think it's obvious. Like it feels obvious, but also it's debatable, which is weird because it's Damian Lillard. But that's just kind of the place we're at in the summer of 2024.
Yep. Yeah, Brook in the locker room is always fun to watch. Sometimes he's reading a book. Sometimes he's, as I said, he's talking to younger guys. Sometimes he's just sitting on his phone. But one of my favorite moments from last year, and honestly, probably all my Bucks like media careers, we all remember the game where the Pacers stole Giannis's ball, and the chaos that ensued after that. All the commotion, and we're just in the locker room, and Brook is just listening to. He's just listening, sitting in his locker, and just listening to "Racing in the Street" by Bruce Springsteen. Everything's fun. Like, oh man, like Giannis is just like Dame's like up at this podium before that, just talking about they took his ball, like that's big, petty, and we're just in the locker room. Brooks just getting dressed, ready to go.
That's one of those nights that could be like an oral history of Game Ball Gate. Like somebody has to write. Maybe it could be is it Mirren Fader? Was that her name? Who wrote the Giannis book? It's waiting to be in the next edition of the Giannis book. Is Game Ball Gate, the oral history for sure.
Absolutely.
All right, let's talk. I think this is the last one, kind of like overall, before we get into some more intangible stuff. I guess it's sort of intangible, depending on your answer. I want to know what you think the team's current greatest weakness is. It could be micro, specific player, could be something more macro, roster construction, could be even something off the court. What are you looking at right now? And you say, this gives me a little bit of pause still going into the regular season.
I'm going to say just the age and like, I'm not going to say lack of athleticism, but just the athleticism draining. Obviously you have younger teams coming up in the East. You look at the Pacers last year, the Knicks. It's just going to be crucial to see how the Bucks can match up against those teams in the playoff environment. Last year against Indiana, you could obviously see they had the athleticism was more tilted towards the Pacers, but then again, Giannis was never on the floor. So it's just a matter of like how much of a difference would that make. But I still think that, the Bucks are the oldest team in the league, and it's going to Father Time's ticking on not just Brooke, but a lot of the some of the other players on the team. So I think it's just, especially when you get into, I don't think the Bucks will have a problem in the regular season. We all know that they can come together and get the wins. They don't. In years past, they'll tell you they don't really care about seeding. Maybe they do more internally, but that's just what they tell the media. So, but just when you get to, the playoffs, and that each possession is just drawn out, and literally the effort and the athleticism just can dictate a game. I think it's just going to be really big to see how this team steps up to the plate. So I would say that is, again, maybe not a weakness, but just like the biggest area of concern in terms of just what could possibly go wrong from the overall team standpoint. It's one of those.
Yeah.
So.
If you think about the starters plus, let's say, this is the mythical 8-man rotation of the playoffs. You have your starters, the presumed group that includes Gary Trent Jr. in place of Malik Beasley. And then let's say it's like Taurean Prince, DeLon Wright, and Pat Connaughton or Bobby or whoever you want to say. Like by the time the playoffs come around, the only guy who will be younger than 30 in that lineup is Gary Trent Jr. That's 1 out of 8 guys. Like that's just the reality of it. Now, Giannis will have just turned 30 a couple of months before, and he is the great equalizer. That's a lot to put on like him and Gary Trent Jr. like all things considered. So it's you hope you have enough health that the craft and like ability will show through of the older guys, because that's what they will rely upon in large part, and some athleticism. It's not like they're complete husks or anything. Yeah. It's just the age, and then the unspoken part of that is the health that comes with that over the course of the season as well. Yeah,
exactly. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna find out in a couple of months, but
hey, I'm aging right along. We're both aging right along with them, Riley.
Yeah, when I saw a couple, like I think it was a week after Giannis strained his calf, I like did the same thing out for a run. I was like, ooh, me and Giannis are heavy. I took inspiration from Giannis. My body took inspiration to like kind of strain my soleus a little bit.
To all you young listeners, it's coming.
Yeah.
My fiance, she's 2 years older than me, and when I turned 26, she goes, "Happy birthday! Now your knees are just gonna hurt like hell." She was right. Like that was I swear, as soon as my birthday hit, like I just oh man, my knees are just stiff, and you find that you need to stretch more. Like even if you're not going for a run or working out, you just like wake up stiff. Ugh. So yeah. Just,
we take it from us kids. Sleep is important. Get enough sleep and hydrate and do everything that the doctors tell you to do. They tell you that for a reason.
For a reason.
Okay. All right. And because you spend so much time at Pfizer Forum, your sleep schedule gets a little wonky sometimes. So
that's the other thing with my age. I would be able to power through because I do a full day of work in my day job. So 9 to 4, go down to Pfizer for pregame media availability.
Yep.
Get that. Cover the game, post game, locker room. God, Giannis talks. It's another 45 minutes, easy. And then transcribe, tweet out quotes, finish story. I'm not home till midnight, 12:30, sometimes 1, if depending on the game. So past years I was able to just like power through, but this year at my office, like I'd be at the Keurig at 2 p.m., 3 p.m. sometimes. My coworkers are just, oh, Bucks game tonight, Gabe. Yeah. The only one in the office making coffee in that afternoon, and I'm like, yep, you got another one. But this past year was the first season where I'm just like, oh God, like this is really catching up. But I still love it. So we'll see how this year goes.
It's such a different rhythm. And like for Eric, for example, like, or Jim, like this is their job. So like they kind of conform, their lives kind of conform around it to an extent, almost like the players and the staff where like you just kind of get used to being a night owl. But like for you or anybody else who just kind of like shows up for one-offs, it's like, I have another career that I spent 8+ hours at today, and now
salary,
yes. Yeah, this is just like a vanity thing for me. Like I'm just here like because I can be, I guess. Like I have the lucky role. It's obviously a great opportunity to have, but yeah, I feel for you guys. That's why like every once in a while when you get the night off and like Jackson comes up or Van is able to fill in, it's like I'm glad Gabe got like a night to go, not be there.
The one good thing though that I will say is that we don't have the pressure of strict deadlines.
That's true.
So that's one thing that I've always been appreciative of.
Unless, and of course, typical, you got the rapid fired up and you think that it's going to go one way, and then like the final 5 minutes, the team decides to make it a lot more interesting. You're like, many such cases.
I remember there was one game, I don't even know who it was, but it was just like the series of like runs at the end were just like I had to change my piece like 3 times, and then it goes into overtime, and then it's like, okay, now I got to start another paragraph, and then you got to change the permalinks and all of that. It's just like, oh God, get me out of here.
And the thing that people don't really realize is like when you're in the media section and the game wraps, I mean, people get moving like immediately. Like the second the game's over, people are up, they're moving because they don't have like the same need to post whatever right then and there. So it's like, oh God, I really need to like finish this out here and get it up.
When there's no direct elevator down to the concourse.
You got to walk down the stairs.
You're maneuvering down the first level concourse, and it's fun. Like we're all pretty good at it. Like you get the hang of it. Like just whizzing down. I mean, Eric Name, I think he has the all-time speed record of time trials from the media box down to the floor. Maybe they can have a running timetable in the back of the press row.
I'm surprised somebody doesn't have like the stopwatch ready to go, like boom, go. Yeah.
So, but yeah, you're right. You have to file the story and then make sure it uploads because sometimes the Wi-Fi can hang it up. But thankfully, Doc he takes his time and you can generally get down there pretty quickly and in enough time still get it into his comments. But
it's controlled chaos, but it is fun. The couple, I can only imagine going all the time. You kind of get into the rhythm of it, but it is fun for a newbie as well. But because you spend so much time at the forum, and because you spend so much time watching Bucks basketball, I want to ask you for this season. Don't think about like long-term goals for the team or anything. What's something that you yourself hope to see the team do during the regular season to make it worth watching for you? What's going to be something you're like keeping an eye on like a night to night basis? Like, this is what keeps me coming back. This is why it's interesting to watch the team.
Yeah. Definitely not the reverse cam.
What about Eric Name on the reverse cam? Can you make an exception?
No. I'm in full agreement with Eric on this one. The reverse cam needs to be banned. But I think going back to our earlier conversation on the young guys, I think it's going to be really fun to see them contribute, because we've mentioned just how old the Bucks are, and it's just the future's unknown for those guys. From AJ Johnson, pure athleticism, he's surprising folks that didn't even know who he was out of Australia, seeing how he can contribute. Like we said, likely won't be significant minutes, but as things progress. And you have Andre Jackson. We know he can contribute. It's just a matter of, can he make that next step defensively, all that. And then we talked about AJ Green, but even just looking at a guy like Marjon Beauchamp, like, the decks obviously stacked up against him. But will he be able to piece it together and, just figure out a way? I think it's just fun to look at those young guys and see how their careers can go, especially when frankly, the Bucks are going to need some of those guys to step up, because if they don't, then it's going to be, I won't say a lost season, but it's definitely going to be a much more uphill climb. So I think it'll be fun to just see those guys, especially if they get continued minutes. And just, it'll be cool to see who earns the trust of Doc, and just through his post-game availabilities. Like I said earlier, he will tell you how it is. He's not afraid to call players out, as the NBA community knows, and whatnot. And he holds his teams accountable. But at the same time, he'll give you praise for what he's seeing, and he speaks the truth. And we always talk, not to go on a Doc tangent, but we always just talk about just how once he took over as head coach, us in the media were able to use post-game quotes again, like in actual pieces and reference. And it was fun to cover Doc, and he's just he's a very nice guy, So
he's super personal. Seems super personable. Yeah.
Not to go off again on a Doc tangent, but the first time I ever it was a slight interaction, but like I remember Bucks Clippers. This is before the pandemic, and Fiserv Forum. Me and Jack Maloney of CBS Sports were walking through this after all the media availability had been done, and we're walking through the concourse. We're about to walk past Doc, and we're just like, "Hey, Doc," just like, and he goes, "How you doing, fellas? Good to see you." Like, we just knew each other for years.
He brings you in close for a little hug. You're like, "Whoa, this is Doc. Why is Doc Rivers hugging me beneath the Fiserv Forum?"
So, but I think just like, so his personality is fun. I appreciate that. It's been fun to cover. But just the fact that, like, just being able to see how he'll be able to tell you the progress those guys are making, or the progress they may not be working, being able to achieve. So I'd say that is what I'm looking forward to and hope to see throughout the year. It'll definitely make it entertaining.
Even like a guy like Chris Livingston, who is like the standout from Summer League, like, what does he look like now that he seemed to take a step forward again in Summer League? So we'll have to see. But like, even he's like an interesting component.
Yeah, and we haven't talked much about him, but he's going to be a guy that will likely get his fair shot at the opportunities. So it'll be exciting to see how he pans out as well.
Yeah. And the thing about it is, like, the way you want to think about team building is the more your young guys develop, that's less pressure that is on John Horst every summer to be like, who can I get off the scrap heap? Who can I get to like come to Milwaukee? Who do these guys know? Like, who does Dame know that he can convince that happens to be a free agent at the right time that fits our role? Like, it is so hard to roll the dice like that. So having the young guys develop is critical for that. And on Doc, real quick, I've been laughing. I was like, if I sent an email to the right email address, I could probably get Doc on the podcast. Like, it wouldn't be that difficult for him to preview the season, do these same questions. Like, Doc, why don't you rank the new sayings?
Oh,
and then he would be like, Riley, that's such a great question. Like you said, like he's been on the podcast a million times, like with Bill Simmons, where he's like, when he does those podcasts, like, it's like, you know, that's just his style, his mannerisms, I guess.
I found myself using Doc Rivers' mannerisms. We all know how Bud had no.
Yeah, no, yeah.
But Doc will start off just like, even it could be a serious question, and then Doc just goes, "Yeah, you know it." He does the Bud thing first, but then he goes, "It's funny." So that he
does that all the time. It does not matter what the situation. He'll start, you know, that's a funny question, or like, oh, it's funny.
I've probably said that a few times tonight on my own, but it's just something. Maybe it's just instilled in my brain. But maybe I'm still hoping for some Pruntyisms to make it. I'm surprised. I wish he had a little more time, because maybe they would have fully gotten in. But Prunty pressers are also the best.
He's well, it's just so funny that he's been in that role literally twice now. Like, how many more times? I was talking about George Hill kept ending up back here because he just fit the role. Like, Joe Prunty's like, I'm just the head coach in waiting.
Yeah, he's
that's just what I am.
Permanent suite at the just looming like the banker in Deal or No Deal.
He's calling down. He's like a coordinator of the NFL. He's just up in the stands, like calling down from a headset.
Oh, that's hilarious.
That's so funny.
Gotta love him.
Okay. Let's final couple of questions here. We're gonna go forward. This is to the playoffs. This is to the ultimate conclusion of the season. First one, in order for the Bucks to win a title this season, they must blank. The only thing you can't answer is say win 16 games. Go for it.
Easy. Stay healthy. Simple. That's what we've seen derail their postseason the last few years. It's frustrating from a fan's perspective, because it's just the what if portion of things, you know, especially going back to after winning the title and their chance to defend. It's just been the unfortunate theme for this team, and it's not going to get any easier as sort of in a theme of this pod of just as the years go by, so the age takes up for the players. Suki's going to have a grand task of keeping everyone in shape, so you can make the argument that she's the most important staff member on the team. But yeah, I think because if the Bucks are without Dame or without Giannis or without Chris,
or without Brooke, even to a certain extent,
this postseason, and you look at the talent that's in the East, whether it be Philly, whether it be Boston, New York, really anybody that will be able to give them challenges if the Bucks aren't fully healthy. So I think that's at the top of the list. It may be cliche, but just it's so crucial, because at this point, especially with how important some of those guys are, it's going to be a lot to ask somebody to step up and fill the shoes of. So yeah, for me, it's simple. They just have to stay healthy.
I just want to see Dame Giannis prove me right or prove me wrong about, because I believe, and because it's because I'm a homer, because I'm a fan, I believe so much that they can make it work. Like, I want it to be one of the great guard big pairings, because they're just like, when those kinds of players come together, it's so iconic. It's basketball at its extremes, played at the highest level. And it's just like, I believe, and I just want to know, am I right or am I wrong? Like, you know, if it goes horribly wrong, okay, it goes wrong, but like, at least we found that out. I just need to see it for like my own sanity's sake.
Together. Yeah, I totally hear you. And it's just such a bummer that we couldn't even see it. Like, you can even get a taste of it last year in the postseason.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. You could get a little bit in the regular season, but there's so much like we already discussed, so much going on in the regular season. So fingers crossed we'll get the taste of that.
Like, we didn't even see Chris with them all. Like,
I think it ended up being like 11
the number of minutes
or something.
number of minutes they were on the court. What are we at? 55 minutes on this pod. Maybe that is
It's
that
about they spent one Dear Diaries podcast worth of time on the floor together all of last season.
Somebody has to run the numbers because
Yeah.
Oh man.
I just want to believe. That's all I want to do, and I want to see it, and I want to be able to react to it. But they, like you said, they have to be healthy for that to happen. Yeah. Fingers crossed. Every finger crossed, please. Let's make it happen.
Bucks fans, but I think basketball fans too.
Yes, yes.
You want to see the best talent out there, and when Dame came to Milwaukee, that was obviously the first reaction everyone had is Dame and Giannis. What's it going to look like? Pick and rolls in the playoff. Like, what is this Bucks capability? This Bucks team's capability going to be with those? That's going to be two superstars. Everyone loves it when the superstars can shine with one another. So I think all of basketball, besides Boston fans, Philly fans, all those guys are hoping that this is the case. So yeah, fingers crossed. I think everyone wants to see that.
Yeah. All right. Final question for you. This is the most unfair one because you can't see into the future, but right now, however you're feeling, predict the teams finish in the East and how far you think they will go in the playoffs. You can make whatever assumptions you like. This is your free space, however you want to fill it up.
Could change before our official
yes, exactly right.
Season prediction roundtable. But I'm going to say I think they can finish third in the East. I think it'll be tough for them to finish higher. I think Boston or Philly or New York will finish ahead of them. So I think that's sort of their ceiling in terms of regular season. I think just as we mentioned the age, there's going to be times where players are sitting. I don't want to say coast. I don't think the Bucks will coast, but it's just I'm saying third because who knows if there's going to be any injuries that serve as obstacles in the road. But I think they're talented enough still, despite everything. And all the adversity that they're likely going to face, I think they're talented enough to get that third spot. And then in terms of overall finish, I'm debating between Eastern Conference semifinals getting knocked out in there or the conference finals. I don't think they'll have enough to get over the hump against Boston. I think Boston will, like I said, as of right now, will be representing the East again. But just dependent on, like you said, I think Dame and Giannis's capability will determine whether or not they're able to go to make that leap from the semis to the conference finals. But I think, like I said, it's just I think it'll be tough to, even if it's against New York or Philly. I mean, it's still crazy to me that the Bucks haven't played Philly in the playoffs.
It has to happen. It has to happen at some point, just for like the world to be okay.
Then we can get Adam out of retirement, and he can cover his first ever Bucks game as a member of the media. Let's get Adam to. How about a Game 7 in Philly or something like that? That'd be sick. He put his blood, sweat, and tears into this. He deserves a playoff run as a media member.
I'm just thinking of Adam because I know Adam has like his whole crew of like Sixers friends who are Sixers fans. So like him having to like deal with them throughout the series. It's so funny. I do hope that happens for a lot of different Sixers series, just because I want to know, like, has all the dogging of Joel Embiid I've been doing, has it been valid? Can I also validate it like so many other teams have been able to validate it?
Yeah.
And because both teams were like at their nadirs at the exact same time, and you had the process, and then you had the Herb Cole Bucks, which were like, we're gonna suck, but we're gonna try and also like be competitive while sucking. And it's like, you know, there was the high and mighty, the process thing going on versus our own little thing. So I've just
that's Evans calling out.
Yes, yeah. Trust the results. Yeah. Yeah. It feels like the script writers have been trying to put it together for a very long time, but we just haven't been able to make it happen. So this would be very sweet.
I think that'd be fun.
It'd be a great series too. Like, you want to like dynamic bigs against each other. Like, that's something you don't see all the time. Like,
sort of like shaping up, obviously not quite to that level, but like how we never got a LeBron versus Kobe finals.
Mm-hmm.
Dwight Howard and the Shaq, or Dwight Howard and the Magic ruined that one.
Yeah.
But I hope it happens. But yeah, I don't think the Bucks. I think it'll just be tough. I mean, maybe they'll surprise me and make a run. But like right now, I think it's like a little stacked up against them.
I think it's a realistic answer. I think it's a reasonable answer, and I would expect nothing less from somebody who spends as much time thinking about the Bucks, covering the Bucks, and has to stare the reality of the situation in the face every time you're down at Fiserv Forum. So I appreciate all your answers, Gabe. This was awesome. This was a lot of fun running through all these. We're going to wrap up that segment of the podcast. We're going to jump over now to Miscellaneous. No rapid fire this week. This was rapid fire, the literally hour that we just finished. So we're going to head over. Gabe is going to be debuting his Miscellaneous segment. We're going to keep this in the back pocket for any future times he's on the podcast as well. It's something we're calling hot off the vinyl press. So Gabe is I've been told, I've seen pictures of it. I've seen the evidence, folks. He is a vinyl record collector, a music enjoyer, an audiophile. And when I asked him for a subject he would like to talk about, something that interests him that isn't basketball related, he said, why not talk about a couple of the albums I've been able to pick up lately? So I've asked him to come up with a select group of albums he has acquired that he would like to discuss for whatever merits he thinks they're worth discussing. I'm going to turn it over to you, Gabe. Go ahead.
Right. Sounds good, Riley. Thank you. Yeah, so through the pandemic, just sort of started accumulating a desire to want to get some more hobbies in place. And I always had an appreciation with music. So I thought, like every other person probably close to my age, just had the same desire, ended up getting a record player. And Riley instructed me to get some.
Ooh, are you going to be showing the albums here?
I have the
okay.
albums here.
So while you're getting those, this is going to be a plug right now, folks. If you are really interested, and you should be, in seeing the footage of this, if you want to see exactly what Gabe is showing, I'll put links in the podcast notes, of course, but head over to Brew Hoop's YouTube page where you can watch the video of this, see what Gabe is showing. It connects it all together. This is an audio-visual medium. That's my plug. Go ahead, Gabe.
Perfect. So this was actually tough because there's a lot of albums I could have.
That's why this is your way to get back on the podcast, is say, I have so many I need to talk about, so we need to keep bringing you back. That's why you do it.
I will say I've been listening to a lot of jazz. So I have a lot of jazz albums, but none of which I'm going to show right now. Miles Davis, Charles Mingus, all the Duke Ellington, John Coltrane. So love those albums. So classics. I just figured I'd go with some more different tastes of what I want. So first one, in no particular order except for the last one. I don't know. It's obviously mirrored, but this is called Wayward Fire. Is the album name. Very weird band name. The Chain Gang of 1974. So very much of a no-namer. Sort of a one-man band style. It runs his own thing. White vinyl for those.
Oh, cool.
But yeah, I discovered him through. I honestly have discovered well, first he's a indie electronic style sort of music. I discovered him first through his song "Hold On," which was on FIFA 11, and like many FIFA soundtracks in the 2010s era, they were absolutely bangers.
Just nonstop. They were putting in
I
work.
always tell this to people: if you are ever in need of new music or want to discover new artists, I won't say now because the FIFA soundtracks now have taken a total plummet. Probably not total, but just in terms of
not the same. It's not the same. Yeah.
No. Go to the 2010, 2011, 20 up through probably 2018, 19-ish is where it started. The quality started to fall, but those FIFA soundtracks, oh my gosh, I don't know how much like percentage of my playlists are heap of musics or derived from that, but it has to be a pretty high amount. So yeah, nothing like scoring 7 goals in a match against the CPU Messi. Hitting the pause button and hearing this song. So Hold On by Chain Gang of 1974. Definitely a song to check out. Similar to that genre of music, this is one of my favorite vinyls, which actually took me a little bit to find. So the band name is Washed Out. Ernest Green is his real name, from Atlanta. You've ever heard? He's like one of the artists where you've heard his music, but don't know the artist name. So New Theory, Feel It All Around are 2 top songs. Feel It All Around is the theme song to Portlandia, if anyone's recognizes it from that. But yeah, this guy is, the genre is actually called chill wave, which is he's also been labeled the godfather of chill wave, of that genre of music. So this is just, you can find it going for a few $100s on like eBay and whatnot. But he had a flash sale on his website where he was just selling it for 35 reprints. I'll show you the cool color with pink.
See, that's awesome. Love that. That's cool.
So you always love it when it's a unique color of vinyl. Actually saw him in Madison a few weeks ago. Was able to check that off my bucket list of musical artists to see. I'll do one that people have probably known next. So
I think I know which one this is. Yeah, I was going to say, even as you were flipping it, it's like, I recognize that one.
Yeah, you recognize that one. Classic. I mean, I could have pulled any tribe album off my vinyl rack. The Low End Theory is just, classic tribe. Yeah, it's where Fife Dogs really came to form, and got a lot of verses in there. So definitely listen to that a lot through college and all that. So it's fun to spin this one. I could have pulled Midnight Marauders from this. I still need to get People's Instinctive Travels and the Paths of Rhythm, which is their first vinyl, but just a standard black one here. But my thing, it took me a while to get this into my collection because I didn't want to just order it from online from big merchant. I actually wanted to look around the local Milwaukee record shops and purchase locally. So every now and then I'll go and peruse, and one of the ones in my neighborhood finally had this, and was able to snag it. So that's one of my favorites. Classic. I mean,
yeah, it's a great album.
You can just play through from first to beginning, first song to last song. Changing gears. This is another totally different genre. Gunfighter Ballads and Trail Songs, Marty Robbins. Absolute classic of an album. If you've never listened to Outlaw Country, here at the back is Marty Robbins' whole biography. The first sentence, the great, though half forgotten, Marty Robbins was country music's Renaissance man. If you've never listened to Outlaw Country, you got to listen to this. It's phenomenal. Big Iron is the first song in the album. Definitely a song I recommend to dive into. Marty Robbins with. Just imagine settlers going out west. For those who have seen Breaking Bad, is it too late to give Breaking Bad spoilers? The show's been out.
Let's just say right now, Breaking Bad spoilers, go.
I won't even say a spoiler. It's his song El Paso is in one of the episodes of Breaking Bad. But yes, definitely watch Breaking Bad too. Could have a whole podcast on that. But yeah, Marty Robbins, definitely recommend checking him out. old 1950s outlaw jazz. Phenomenal artists. And then those weren't in any order of rankings, just some that I really appreciate. But this final one is one that I hold true and dear to my heart. Probably my favorite band, my favorite album.
Yeah.
M83, Hurry Up, We're Dreaming. I cannot tell you how many times I've listened to this album. It's what I would throw on at UWM's library in my study sessions. Phenomenal album, double album. So if you have an hour and a half plus to kill, listening to the album straight through is an experience I definitely recommend. For those unfamiliar with M83, I guarantee you've heard its song "Midnight City." Literally, probably the definition of almost like indie alternative music of the 2010s. Also, probably the best concert I've seen live. Extremely talented musician. His real name's Anthony Gonzalez. Saw him live in Chicago about a year and a half ago. His latest album, Fantasy, is also good. I have that on vinyl. I think he has. Oh God, I'm just doing a quick. So many instruments, so he plays everything. So it's really cool from him. If you appreciate music, definitely check out M83 just from the talented. A lot of synth, but his later albums have saxophones, guitars, cellos, all sorts of types of. Just seeing him in concert, instruments that I didn't even know exist. Definitely recommend checking him out. I think I just Googled it. On his latest album, 10 different drum machines, dozens of guitars, 37 different synths and keyboards, including a grand piano. It's just really unique. So anytime you can see, I just have a great appreciation for music. So it's, as you can see, it's all over the place. The only true music I don't really listen to is today's country, that, and then I guess like screamo, death metal. But I still have an appreciation for it. Just not my thing, but love checking out music, exploring. And people ask like, why do you like vinyl? And I think it's just like we grew up in the era of streaming music. It's just all, blends together. And I think just having the physical copy is something that's appreciative. You have vinyl, Riley?
No, so I was going to ask a couple of follow-up questions. I've always been slightly interested, but my wife, and she won't listen to this, so it's okay, I can say this. She doesn't like music playing out loud in the house. Wow. So, and I know you could set up vinyl, you can have the headset and everything like that, so I could go through with it, but it's just never been something that if I had it, I would want to be able to listen to the music out loud. Yeah. So having kind of the restrictions of having to just do a headset, it pushes me off of it a little bit.
Yeah, I totally get that. Shout out Van. He actually gifted me. He's a fellow vinyl and jazz enthusiast. So he actually gifted me my edition of Kind of Blue by Miles Davis. So
that's awesome.
I easily had that in this list. But those are the five that my top 5 draft out of my vinyls. I could have, like I said, done 10, 15, 20.
I was going to ask, so a couple of quick follow-up questions. Just estimate, how many vinyl records do you have? Estimate.
I'll give you 2 numbers. Ones that I've actually personally purchased, probably 50. I have like a very tight criteria for vinyls. Like I don't want to just, if I like one song, I don't want to buy it. It has to be like an album that I can listen to through. It's a selective process. I won't just buy, even like, if I really like the artist, I may not buy all their vinyls. But then if you include my dad's vinyls that he gave me, which don't even have cases or anything like that.
Just hanging out.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
That have survived 2 floods.
Troopers.
But the Abbey Road, somehow Abbey Road's cover was ruined in a flood, but the actual disc was. I don't know how. Perseverance of the Beatles. But if I included that, it would probably at least double that number, but maybe triple or quadruple it.
Jeez.
I vaguely remember Kyle saying he got records from his dad.
I think he's got a couple. Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
So Toots and the Maytals, if you're talking reggae, I have them on vinyl. Really cool genre, music, reggae. So I found a great appreciation for that in the last few years. But yeah, it's great. Definitely recommend it for anyone out there who's been flirting with the idea. Like I had been flirting with it for a while. I started off, my fiance got me for Christmas one year as like a starter kit to the hobby, like one of those Victrola, just players, which actually that thing is cool. It's a tank. I mean, it's like, it has the old retro look, but in addition to being a vinyl player, it's Bluetooth. So you can hook your Bluetooth radio, CD-ROM. Then it even has a cassette tape player on the side. So it's like, awesome. I got to keep it for all that reasons. Like I don't have an actual radio other than that in the house if I want to listen to anything. But then I made the upgrade. I'm like, okay, this is an actual hobby that I'm committed to. So I got a actual Audio Technica. It's higher quality, Bluetooth capability, but also wired speakers you can have too. So I'm in it at this point. But yeah, it's been fun to dive into.
That's really cool. And the other follow-up question was going to be, what is like your listening experience? Do you have it on? Do you like play them semi constantly as like background noise? Do you like have a dedicated, I want to sit down and listen to this album and just like hang out with it? Like, what's your typical approach?
Typically it'll be, if it's like, if I'm cooking, sometimes I'll have that on. If it's like Friday after work and, you know, there's nothing to, like on the calendar, just have a few beers and lounge and listen, that's fun. Or if you're like cleaning around the house, that's also fun to just have playing as background noise and going every 15 or so minutes and flipping it, and it's fun. It's fun. So I'd characterize those as the listening experiences. Dang, I just realized I could have grabbed Is This It by the Strokes too. Which I've tweeted out multiple times, and Brew Hoop Godfather Frank Madden, I know, shout out Frank, is a big fan of the Strokes. So
shout out Frank indeed. Yeah.
Shout out Frank.
Well, that's why I think we've hit gold with this. I think this is a good segment. Every time you're on, I'm going to force you to have another 5, maybe even more to bring back, because even though I don't have any, I do like looking at them. I like just looking at the aesthetics of the albums. There's something, just even the album covers themselves, the cases.
Yeah, for sure.
It's just,
especially if we have Kyle or Dan on, just gonna
just have a whole session just going through your guys. I'll just do it.
We won't even be Bucks basketball.
We have room for it. It's our podcast. We can do whatever we like for it.
Right?
So that would be cool.
Absolutely.
Well, this is a lot of fun, Gabe. Where can people find you outside of just brewhoop.com if you would like people to find you on the internet?
For sure. Feel free, if folks are interested in doing so, follow me on X, formerly Twitter. Stoltzy3 is my handle. So last name Stoltz, Stoltzy, and then the number 3 is where you can find my tweets and stay up to date with the latest jackpot shots at Bucks games. So yeah, I'll be doing that, kicking that off again in a few months. I've been doing it for a few years, documenting it. So I just try to have fun, you know, with the grueling season, and gotta make it worthwhile. So, but yeah, I've been enjoying it, and I was looking at I was looking at the year, and I think my first year was with Brew Hoop was 2017. So sneaking up on a decade with the site, which is absolute bonkers, I think. But you gotta be, because you were here before me, so you have to be.
Oh, easily over a decade at this point. Yeah, I started back when I was in college. So no, Maybe not. I'd have to go back and look. I wasn't ahead of you that much. Like I think maybe 2015 was my first. So closing on a decade, but not quite there just yet.
Who was the editor? Because that might be
Frank was there right at the very end. Yes, that was before he handed it off to Mitchell. That was before the hostile takeover by our former boss, Mitchell Maurer. We love you, Mitchell.
Shout out Mitchell.
Yeah. Well, this was a lot of fun. It's been a lot of fun. We look forward to seeing all your coverage of the team, especially all the reports you get in person, which we appreciate. We thank everybody for listening. We will continue our interview series with the rest of the staff of Brew Hoop in the coming weeks. Share, like, subscribe, send to your friends. I'm sure other people like the Bucks. You listen to Bucks content, weird Bucks content. Send it to people who want more Bucks content. We'll talk to you again very soon. We thank you for listening.